Sorry, YouTube sent me a thing and it's pretty cool. All right, let's go back to being anonymous. So we have a fair bit to waffle about, and this video, it was originally going to be a bit of a rant, but now it's going to be a bit more like structured. So there's been a poll that has gone live all over the internet calling for a general election, basically to elect a different government into power into the UK. And yeah, the government's response has been... The government's response has been beyond tragic. So every like 6 months to a year, usually a petition goes up on the Parliament website where you can basically sign the petition, and if it gets 100,000 signatures, then the government have to respond to it, but then also they can consider it for a debate actually in Parliament. So in front of like all of the MPs, and all decisions are made for the country. You know how it works. So a petition went live on the Parliament website and it received over 700,000 signatures of people calling for a general election, basically re-elect a different government into power to fix some of the issues that the UK is currently facing. And there's a lot, so many. I laugh because if I don't, I'll cry. So this petition went live, got 700,000 signatures. The government responded with their initial response, and now it has to be considered for a debate in Parliament. Now, a lot of people are holding on to hope that this will fix the problem and we'll get a new government into power and the problems will all go away. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I hate to be the guy that's putting a downer on everything. But last year, the same petition went up and it got 3 million signatures. That's 5% of the entirety of the UK voted for that. And the government responded to it. And in the latest petition that's just come out, they just copy and pasted the same response. No, genuinely, it's the same statement. All the petitions that go up in this Parliament website, it makes people feel that they have the power for things to change in the country. And I hate to be like the bad news guy. I hate to be the bearer of bad news and to be putting a downer on this topic. But these petitions, there are things that we can do to make change, to be very clear on that. We will talk about that. But these petitions are to give us the feeling that we have control, the feeling that we're making a difference, the feeling that our voices are being heard by the government, but they most certainly are not. So when actually researching this video, I tried to find in the news tab on Google some information about this kind of general election that people are calling for, and I couldn't. To be clear, when searching for the exact name of the petition, you can find it on Google, but in the news tabs, bearing in mind I know articles are written about this, which by the way, thank you Ground News, you can actually see all the stuff on there, but in the news tab on Google, none of these articles or none of this information about this vote for a general election has appeared, and it's genuinely concerning that I don't like going down the whole narrative of like the government are silencing Google. I don't really, I think maybe that's my bias. I don't want to believe it, but it's very clear that you can't find any information about this on Google. So I'm very pleased to say that Ground News are sponsoring this video. So here's a bit of information about them. If we take the Online Safety Act as an example, searching for it on Ground News, we can see various different topics and how many sources each topic has. And then when we actually click into the various articles, we can see which topics are left-leaning, right-leaning, or very centrist. For example, left-leaning media talks about the act itself, the right-leaning media talks about the resistance to the act, and the centrist media talks about a bit of both. And on the right-hand side, we can actually see the split of which news media is left-leaning, right-leaning, and centrist, and also we can see a factuality report, which shows how factual the information tends to be from those outlets. Now, Ground News has no ads on it at all. It relies on subscriptions from you guys. I don't have to mention this, but it was actually me that reached out to them. I've been using Ground News now for around 2 years, and it makes my job a lot easier. So if you want to save yourself 40% off a Vantage plan, make sure you use the link down below, or just type in ground.news/CW. Thank you to Ground News, and now let's get back to the video. Now, this begs the question of what can we actually do as like British people, as a society, and maybe even for US citizens that maybe want the same thing. What can we do and what actually makes a difference? Well, the metric that governments use isn't necessarily money. The language is power and money is usually the means. In the case of the UK with the Online Safety Act, at the moment that's a big thing that's been introduced by the British government in the UK. Obviously other countries have done it too, and there are some videos coming about that. But with the British government introducing that, for them, the success of that campaign is important to them being re-elected again. And also with things like migrant boats, what's happening with migrants coming over to the UK, that's also really important to the British government on how they're perceived as a government. Now, this comes down to the core principle that governments rely on, which is optics. And I know we've spoken about this before, but it's very, very, very important. For example, if you oppose the Online Safety Act, the narrative that's driven to the mainstream media is that by opposing the Online Safety Act, you immediately want harm to come to children, which obviously isn't the case, but it's the optics. The government want people to feel like by openly criticizing the Online Safety Act that they are against the safety of children or they're rooting for something nefarious. And this is how governments survive passing policies that people generally disagree with. That when it comes to petitions like voting for a re-election, people will already start propositioning that as a way to say, look, people are just angry about one particular thing the government's doing. People don't actually want change. They're just a bit annoyed because something bad happened. Or in the case of the Online Safety Act, people are annoyed because they can't watch naughty content on the internet. And this is exactly the conversations that would take place in the Houses of Parliament should this petition actually go through to a discussion in front of some MPs. This is the way that it'll be phrased. This is the way that it'll be discussed. And I can pretty much guarantee that inside the Houses of Parliament, when they discuss the Online Safety Act and all the things that the British government's currently doing, no one's going to mention anything about what we found in our research, what us as internet users and, let's be honest, pretty fucking nerdy people, what we found out. For example, recently we went all the way through examples such as Carnegie UK. Now, Carnegie UK are a trust. They actually wrote the Online Safety Act, and basically everything was outsourced to private individuals to write this act on behalf of the government. And when this act came into power, the people that benefited were the people that were invested in the online verification companies. So basically a private company wrote a law which they'd financially benefit from, and we see this all of the time, but I just know for a fact that this won't be brought up in the Houses of Parliament. In fact, I'm 99.9% sure that a lot of the people in government have no idea who wrote the act. They don't care. It's a bit of paper that landed on their desk and they have to sign it, approve it, and then Keir Starmer goes, all right, and that's it. And that's it. If we actually want to see change in the UK, we need to be educated, fair and resourceful when it comes to finding out where laws came from and how to basically back the government into a corner. So for example, with the case of the Online Safety Act, by putting protection on your kid's phone and on your home router would fix the problem. Having a child safety lock on a kid's phone is not 100% bulletproof, but it's a damn sight better than doing the Online Safety Act. And the thing is if the government are presented in a public setting with this information and they decline in a public platform on mainstream media in front of the news, if they decline to even listen or entertain these possibilities as an alternative, that is a bang to rights moment where the whole UK population will see that this isn't about protecting children, because the alternatives to the Online Safety Act are significantly safer. The only difference is the government can't monitor the alternatives. If you remove the ability for governments to be able to monitor web traffic and actually suggest alternatives such as ISP protections and mobile phone protections to the government, and they decline that publicly in front of an audience of people, that's public embarrassment for the government's campaign. And this might sound really convoluted, but we need to be in scenarios where MPs, people within the government that are currently in power, need to be presented with these alternatives on TV live repeatedly over and over and over again until they get backed into a corner where they can't justify the Online Safety Act, because that's when we get the people that maybe couldn't care less about the Online Safety Act starting to question the government's motive. The percentage of the UK that actually care about the Online Safety Act and want to stop it from continuing being in effect are a very vocal but small minority. We need to educate and teach the rest of the UK about what the actual side effects and issues are with the Online Safety Act. This isn't about gooning. It's not about anything like that. And we need to make the general public that aren't as educated on this more educated and give them the tools they need to understand that this is wrong. So when you go and talk to your friends and family about the Online Safety Act, and when you go and talk to them about why you disagree with it, don't start waffling about censorship. Don't start talking about this, that, and the other. You need to sit down with them and explain what the Online Safety Act does, and also explain a better solution to them. When they can see that the Online Safety Act is such an extreme measure for an issue that is so small, they'll start to question their government, and that will change who they vote for too. I'm not here to tell you who you should vote for the next election that comes up. There are many different parties that have many different things that they prioritize. For me, I'm going to prioritize whichever party put the focus on overturning the Online Safety Act, because the Online Safety Act is the first step to censoring speech. Censoring the content we see is the first step to that. And the second that there's laws passed that intentionally go to censor speech more than there already is, we lose the ability to even criticize our governments for the mistake they make. When that happens, that is awful. That is the worst thing that can happen to our country. I know it's cringe, but knowledge is power. Educate the people around you. Don't start sounding like a conspiracy theorist. And I've seen it in the comments, and I know what you guys are like. I know it. I've seen you in the comments. Don't start going down that route. Start educating people on actual better alternatives to the Online Safety Act and explain to them about why the Online Safety Act exists, how it's come to be, and also prove the ulterior motives from the government. Thank you for watching, and a massive thank you to Ground News for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.